Awesome. Okay, folks, welcome back. This is Pete Erickson, the founder of Modev and the creator of Voice Summit. And this is part of our speaker series where we're taking an opportunity to get to know the speakers that are coming to Voice Summit. We have more than 300 speakers coming from 20 countries around the world, and we are absolutely thrilled. But we felt like it's important to start to get to know who's going to be there in advance and what they're going to be speaking on and get to know folks. So this morning, we're speaking with John Amein. John is with ID&D. Hello, John. How you doing?
Hi, Pete. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. So I guess first and foremost, tell us about ID&D and what you do there.
Okay. Well, ID&D may not be the sexiest name in the world, but in 4 letters, it does tell you what we do. So it's very efficient. We do research and development into identity. And what we believe in is that biometrics are the best way to authenticate identity, and really the only way to create a friend-like experience. So, Pete, now that we sort of know each other and recognize each other, I'll be able to see you and recognize you when I see you in person, hopefully at the Voice Summit. And I know your voice now, and if I were an application, I would know how you type. So what we're doing is putting biometrics into applications or enabling companies to do that so that the application can recognize the user just like we can recognize our friends and people we know.
That's great.
How they voice biometrics, very important, of course, and that's what the summit's about. But we also do other modalities like face and typing, behavioral biometrics.
That's interesting. So, identity authentication, I think what's interesting is if you look back and you look at how we as consumers start to use authentication and start to actually understand the benefits. At first, authentication can be seen as a blocker, but it's actually an enabler, right? So the touch pad on the phone, or now the facial recognition, and doing things like Apple Pay and things that are seamless transactions. Can you comment on that a little bit as it relates to identity and authentication?
Yes, I think you really hit it. That it's what we're trying to do is bring what we call a zero effort authentication to the market. So exactly what you're describing, that it's a convenience. Right now, remembering passwords. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, there you go. See, exactly.
Everybody has the same issue.
People, I saw a recent study, 96 passwords is what typically you have to know, and most people use 5 and they use them across the 96. I mean, it's just impossible to keep track of all this, even with password tools. So having to know all that is just a pain, and
Right.
having this zero effort authentication, being able to use your voice to present who you are in an application, at a kiosk, at an ATM, at physical access, that's really powerful. And even things like smart home speakers, Alexa type devices, not necessarily cars, although they're becoming voice enabled. Well, it's going from what is now give me a command. You give the command to the device to the next phase, which is it needs to know who you are so it can personalize the experience. Right. And then once it's past personalizing, if you want to do a transaction where you would normally need a password, it can authenticate you. So voice becomes this personalization tool and an authentication tool to enable transactions, to enable commerce, to enable convenience.
Yeah, I mean, we're fairly close to this, given that we organize the event, but I think, we get asked a lot, about this market and like, how big is this voice market? And, it's a little like, the genie's out of the bottle and the genie's not going back.
Yeah.
My kids are 7 and 8, and they now, when they were little, they expected to be able to tap and swipe any screen. And they were always surprised when they would go to one and it didn't have that.
Yes.
Now they talk to our devices. We talk in the car. They talk to a remote control. So then now they're moving. They really are the voice first children. But the market, I think, what's interesting is I think the market is going to understand the power of voice, and the breadth to which voice can make things more efficient. make us more efficient, and make us more secure. And I think that's maybe one of the areas you guys are hitting on.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're hitting on. We'll be talking about that at the panel that I'm on at the show of how voice is becoming this authentication tool within enterprises, within companies. So it's a tool to authenticate, and again, it can be a zero friction tool, or it can be one where you explicitly have to say things in order to authenticate your identity, which is also can be a good thing. Having a little bit of friction, so that as a consumer, that your identity is being checked, and you're glad about that. That can be a positive thing too.
I saw a tweet yesterday. I'm not going to say the name of the company, but a large company where they have a authenticator for their access to their intranet and their email and everything. And every 30 days, I think that your password expires and you have to re-up.
God.
And it just happens at the worst possible times.
Absolutely.
It happens during the workday. And some point you basically, you could be in a meeting, or, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting when we see things like that. And one day we'll look back and say, God, remember that time? Well, we're still in that time, but the future is really bright. And I know that's why we are bringing you to Voice Summit to be one of our speakers. Let's talk a little bit about your talk there. I'm going to share the screen here and get over to the agenda and schedule here. So it looks like you're going to be on Wednesday, July 24th. There's a panel in the afternoon for anybody that is in the enterprise space or want to understand really the future of accessible data and analytics and the topics that we're chatting about here. That this is an ideal opportunity. John, let's talk a little bit about the panel and and how you see the future of voice assistants in the enterprise.
So what I would be talking about on this panel is the fact that enterprises are beginning to adopt the idea of a conversational interface instead of only a web kind of an interface. You have a chat bot, and over the phone you're now having more intelligent speech-driven conversations. Mobile devices now will give you an opportunity to speak your commands, much like again sort of this Alexa type experience, but you have it with the enterprise through a mobile application. And what's made this possible, so all this artificial intelligence for natural language understanding, natural language processing has all made this possible. But a fundamental aspect of this has to be authentication. You have to know that it is the right person who is communicating. And, again, this is where voice comes in. And you also have to know that it's not somebody being spoofed, like that it's not a recording of your voice or there's all these powerful tools on the web now to synthesize your voice. They could probably take recordings of you, Pete, off of YouTube and construct this, fake Pete as a bot, if you will, that's trying to attack an enterprise and take over an account. So you have to know these things are happening, and that's what our technology is able to do. It is able to, number one, authenticate your identity, and number two, able to determine that you're not some sort of playback attack or some sort of spoofing attack. And so we'll be talking about how that fits into the conversational interface for an enterprise and how it enables customers to access the enterprise and speak to the enterprise using their natural voice and natural commands.
Well, we're thrilled to have you and all of your experience. I know you've been doing this for decades. You're not new to this space. Like a lot of our speakers, you've been at this for a long time. And I think that's also what's kind of interesting is that, people are talking about the voice first era that, is sort of this new era, but it's really been building for a long time. And a lot of hard work has gone into this industry from folks like you so that we could be in the position that we are today and really take advantage of all the opportunities. So John, we appreciate your time today. We look forward to seeing you in Newark at the end of July and enjoying your panel as well.
Great. Thank you, Pete. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. For those of you out there, voicesummit.ai, tickets go up slightly after May 31st. Now's a good time to get in. Look forward to seeing you at the end of July in Newark, New Jersey. Take care.